Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Arc-Aholics. This podcast is a collection of passionate gamers talking about Arc Raiders and various related topics. All content creator guests have their channels linked in the description below. I highly recommend checking them all out, and at the end we'll talk about the cool content we've got coming down the pipe. Before we get started, here's a quick shout out to my channel supporters. These absolute legends help make this kind of content possible. And a special shout out to my Florida Man alligator tier supporter, the Tranimal. Check out the links below if you're curious on how to support the content. With that out of the way, let's get rolling. Welcome to the episode 13 of the Arc-Aholics. We got an amazing show for you guys today. We got a huge panel, as you can see, brand new guest, and a ton of info for us to talk about. Starting off, we're going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Gecko, your host. But we have our resident Embark content creator, Rockhoundblack.
Thanks for having me on board once more, and it's great to have a larger panel this time. I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's opinions today.
Lots to talk about, too. And once again, returning guests, we have Lou from Itsluve YouTube channel.
What's up, what's up? I'm the resident Minecraft YouTuber that every podcast needs.
Absolutely. It's kind of our diversity quota on that one. So then we have TacticalNed, the absolute rock star that doesn't need a green screen for anything because he's just that good.
It's good to be back. Very excited for today's conversations.
Fantastic. And for our very first time guest, we have Debo from Debo OMG.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
For those of you guys who don't know, Debo OMG posts daily Arc Raider PvP content. I highly recommend checking this man's channel out. And as tradition, your first time here, you got to do a little icebreaker question. Starting off, if you could spawn or get to immediately any POI in Arc Raiders, which one would it be and why?
Ooh. I'm going for the town hall at Buried City because I always have the best PvP there. Immediately go to town hall, open the door with the key, get some kills, get some loot, and take the hatch key right behind it. Perfect run.
Yeah, you have multiple videos from what I've seen if that exact scenario, so it's always entertaining.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
Your answer does not surprise me in the slightest. All right, so
that's going to be the main camping spot from now on for everyone, right?
All right, everybody.
I know. I shouldn't have leaked it.
But honestly, if you've seen this man PvP, wouldn't necessarily be seeking this man out. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't seek this man out.
Well, thank you.
All right, so
I'll try not to die anymore.
Right?
It'll be embarrassing.
Oh, it will be embarrassing. We'll all point and laugh. Ha 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 ha. All right, so Embark dropped a bit of a doozy for us. They dropped their solution to wipes, to the in-game economy. And this is a big deal. If you look at any typical analytics on YouTube, this subject gets a lot of traction. Doesn't matter how big the channel is, doesn't matter how fancy the thumbnail or whatever it is. Anybody talking about wipes and Arc Raiders, it gets a ton of traction. So to have finally official news from Embark about it is a big deal, right? And so Rockhoundblack has already put together a really solid video explaining all of it. And those of you who are here are obviously very sophisticated Arc-Aholics, so I'm trusting that you've read it. If you haven't, I'll put a link in the description. You can go ahead and read along as we're going through it. We're not going to read it, but we're going to cover some key points. We're going to start off with the tone. I think it's really important to talk about that right off the bat because regardless of what our opinion is of the substance of the post, the way they set the tone in their communication, I think, is expert, which is not normally something I can say about Embark. Ned, returning a guest, what did you think about how they delivered the message, not necessarily the message itself?
I really liked it. I feel like they learned from some of their previous messages where they were more clear on things and even stated in there, this might change or this isn't set, stuff like that, so that there's still speculation to be had, but it's not, they did a lot better job of setting expectations instead of leaving too much of the expectations to imagination.
Lou, I saw you nod your head. Did you have something to comment on terms of like that?
Yeah, I loved how I was looking for the exact wording, but I think they said we're gonna try it our way first. So I really like what they said of like, we've seen this, we've seen that, we've seen Tarkov, we've seen Delta Force, everyone does wipes, and we got this thing, but that doesn't mean it's set in stone. I like that it's like, hey, this is our idea, let's see how it works, and we'll go from there.
Agreed. Debo, what did you think? Did they give you a lot of confidence in terms of their, not just necessarily what their idea was, but how they were delivering it?
I like the fact that they're able to give a confident answer, but not necessarily force things. And I think in the future, they're going to be pretty flexible, which we've seen. For example, when they announced that they weren't going to have any more play tests, and then suddenly they announce a new one. I think that's a pretty good sign of leadership because they're not, getting stuck in old plans. They're willing to be flexible. You see the Battlefield beta came out, and I was really excited that they announced another playtest because when they did the Battlefield beta, that gave a lot of PR to the game. So it just shows that they're, willing to do the right thing for the game if they see fit.
We did talk about that. Rockhound, he did mention the fact that they essentially did what we maybe accused them not being able to do during the Summer Games Fest fiasco. They were able to read the room appropriately, so they reversed course on that playtest. And with this messaging, I feel like they're also again reading the room. Is that a good assessment, you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very good assessment. I think it's whenever someone innovates on something and announces it, it's always a tricky thing to present in front of people because it's different. And so I think they've done a good job of just saying, hey, we're going to try something different. We kind of know it might not be perfect to start with, but we're going to do our best to figure it out based on what we hear and read from the community. And they said they're going to literally, we'll be keeping an eye on the discussion around this message. So basically says right from the get-go, they're going to be open to hearing what the community's opinion is, which is great.
I feel like a single word could describe the tone in terms of how they delivered it, and maybe you guys could elaborate on that in terms of or maybe if you had a different take on it. I felt like it had an abundance of humility, which was really attractive as a customer. Like they acknowledged that it's not a silver bullet. They used that exact word, those exact phrasing, and they also acknowledged the utility of wipes in the past. They acknowledged that it has this level of success for the utility of what it's supposed to do. And so I felt like that was great in the sense that they weren't coming at it as like, we know best. And like you guys have stated, I think that tone, it helps kind of frame the conversation we're about to have, because regardless of how you feel about the substance, the mechanics, this, that, and the other, the fact that they're coming at it that way makes it hard not to be optimistic, because you're like, if it doesn't work out, they've already stated as such, they're willing to listen when it doesn't. And so I think that's super attractive from a developer. What else did you glean from that? Let's go with Itsluve.
I mean, first off, I think it's kind of brilliant, and I kind of think they think it's brilliant also in like a weird way. I think the way I read that post was like, hey, we think this is really gonna work, and
this is amazing.
Yeah, we'll kind of say like, hey, if this doesn't work, doesn't. But also, I feel like they're kind of like, yeah, this is gonna fucking work.
Interesting. So that kind of helps kind of segue us into the actual media, the actual mechanics of it all. And so essentially what I've seen is it's kind of a mix between a season and a prestige, right? It does a really great job couching that. It also has a timing mechanism that I think a lot of prestige mechanics don't do. I think I talked in depth to this during my prestige video where, I said this exact thing. Hey, unless there's a way you can kind of force people to do it all at the same time, it doesn't really hold water. And I feel like this is kind of a good stopgap towards that. So why do you think this mechanic is important to have? Like, why do you think there's so much fanfare around any video that talks about it, and why is this particular message important now? Let's go with Ned.
Because right now everybody expects with extraction shooters is there's always wipes, and a huge amount of players hate that. And so I believe that's why there's been a ton of content around it and just interaction, is everyone wants to know how they're going to do it. Because Embark's already proven that they don't stick to the mold when it comes to the extraction shooters. They've done a lot of things differently. They've improved on a lot of things. And I think it's going to be a really good method if it's done correctly, and we'll probably get into that later. But overall, I think it is very important that they get this right. And I think so far they're doing very good at doing that.
Sure. It's important that they get it right, but I think the reasoning why I think might elude a lot of players, because this Arc Raiders is attracting a ton of people who normally aren't into the extraction shooter genre. And so
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to state, like, Debo, why do you, when you heard the news, were you at all curious about what that end game was going to look like? In your previous experience with extraction shooters, like, was that always kind of a thing that you wanted to know that was not there?
Sorry, just to clarify, you're asking, was I curious about the way prestiging would work?
Well, curious about what the end game would look like. Like, what's the end here?
That's a good question, because end game is pretty important in extraction games. I feel like the replayability of extraction games can get kind of stale depending on the game. You know, a lot of Tarkov players can probably attest. I have a friend, Brian, who might watch this. He can probably attest. You do the same quests over and over. You wipe, you get the same gear. So I think the way the end game is presented to the player and the variety it shows can be pretty important for retention. But I also think that the prestiging system goes a little further than the end game. It can be a pretty cool narrative tool. And I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion on it.
Okay. And Rockhound, do you agree that in terms of, do you see some nuggets here in terms of ways they can further the narrative?
As far as furthering the narrative, for me, the big thing is actually allowing those people who don't have as much time to put into the game, or perhaps just naturally progress more slowly, giving them the opportunity to still progress to that end game, which with mandatory wipes, they may just never do because they get wiped before they get the chance to get there. So that's the big inclusion for me, is those people having that opportunity. I think as far as like the replayability of things like quests and so on, to me it seems like Embark, all along they've talked about Arc Raiders as being a living game where they want to change it along the way. So we may even see, quests in a new season, if you want to call it that, be changed up quite a bit. So the people that have wiped might go, actually, it doesn't feel like I'm just repeating the same thing over again. So I think there's a few fronts that they can sort of push boundaries on here.
Interesting.
On that note, it kind of does seem like the best of both worlds.
I think there's a healthy optimism in the community, and it kind of mirrors what everyone's kind of saying right now. Thanks to you guys, we got a nearly 500 votes as of the time of this recording on the poll I put out. I'm gonna put it on the screen now, basically asking the general communities that's follow me and you guys what they thought of the announcement. Now I can only put 4 options. I couldn't put a fifth one to kind of have like an even neutral or anything like that. But the options were basically very pleased, hopefully optimistic, I don't hate it but I don't love it, and disappointed. 1% was disappointed. 5% was don't hate it but I don't love it. 46% was very pleased, and then 49% is hopefully optimistic. And I think it has a lot to do with the tone that we talked about earlier. Like, despite what you might feel about it, it doesn't feel permanent, right? It doesn't feel like they've fully committed and that they're going to be belligerent about the results of it one way or the other. And the consistent comments that I've gotten on this is basically like, if it weren't for the fact that this game doesn't have wipes, I probably wouldn't be interested, right? I'm getting that consistent feel of a lot of people are attracted to this game because they don't have permanent wipes, or they don't have mandatory wipes, that is. So that's a huge attraction for that, and so they kind of know their audience a little bit. The phrase they did use is it was the majority of our audience. And so, do these results surprise you at all? Let's go with Ned.
Yeah, a little bit. I expected a more negative response, only because of what I've seen online and just like my own comments and stuff like that. Majority of people just hate the fact that it's another extraction with wipes as the end game, which I'll get to in just a second. But it's also really good because there's a ton of players that just don't have, like, I'm never going to have the time to finish a Tarkov wipe. I've tried it twice and I just don't have the time. So I don't bother. I just play it to play it. I don't try to max it out. And for someone like myself, that fully completing stuff is an accomplishment. Like I just like doing it. It's kind of hard to keep playing it for that reason. And the other thing is like people are complaining, just saying, "Oh well, they're doing wipes again. What an in game, blah blah blah." But correct me if I'm wrong, but nowhere in that post did it say this is our in game. So for all we know, they have other contents or stuff for the in game that they're going to have. The wipes just there as part of the in game, as well as making it to where you don't have people just building up gear and they have it from day one all the way until year 5 or whatever. It did surprise me that you got more positives than negatives.
Interesting. I think I'm gonna hone in on a specific phrase that you said here, is that this is not the end. They didn't say there's an end game, and I'd be inclined to agree. Is like I can see this easily being added to any game that we currently have out in the market right now without disrupting its current flow. I don't see this as an end game. I see it more of like, this is what we have for right now, and we can add a bunch of stuff on top of this, right? This is just one mechanism to remove gear out of the situation. And so what did you think about that, Rockhound?
Yeah, I think in a way it gives people the opportunity to step out of end game, whatever end game is. So there's a lot of factors here that could be part of end game. So we've got the PvE element. So Embark could have ways of ramping up the Arc presence, so that becomes something that's more challenging for players as they go into rounds towards end game. Different maps could be end game related. There's a whole variety of ways they can present end game to us. And I don't actually see the wipes as kind of being end game. I see them as a kind of opportunity for players to go, okay, I've kind of had my fill. I want to go back and do it again, and I'm ready to do it now.
Okay.
So yeah, perhaps maybe I look at that differently from some, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Okay. Does anyone here disagree with that? Like, okay,
Actually, can I jump in there?
just go for it.
So, agreeing with what he just said and actually kind of like adding to it, I think endgame PvE especially could be pretty. Sorry, I think endgame PvE could be pretty interesting because I don't know if you guys saw on the Reddit, but they were talking about something called a drone swarm, some limited time modes, and I would love to see a lot of limited time modes and just variety from Embark and Arc Raiders. I know they already do a lot of limited time modes in the finals, and it would be really cool to see really large groups of players teaming together to take down like a giant, Arc robot or something like that. And that would be endgame because you can't do that with the Stitcher or the Rattler. You need probably an energy weapon, probably some Wolfpack grenades, etc. So I really do like what he said, and I think PvE is an opportunity because endgame as PvP, it can get stale because you keep fighting the same players. But once you add the dynamic aspect of PvE, it kind of brings the world to life, So
I think we talked about that a little bit too, like one of the first couple episodes of this podcast, and it was either Gecko or Rockhound brought up how it would be cool if for the new maps, like we had to go there and there was like a stupid abundant amount of Arc we had to kill first before it could be a map we could explore, or like the Arc could raid a certain map and just, hey, you have to wipe out all these AI now before you can go do anything. Like you can't just explore like usual. There's too many Arc type stuff. So I think that would be pretty cool, and it fits in perfectly.
Yeah, it could also be used to push a narrative. You can time that with like seasonal releases and new content releases, for example. A really like good traffic driver, so to speak, and have these limited time events where we're going to go ahead and just crank all the PvE in the map up to 11 and then let the players, do what they may with that. So Luv, what else do you think they can probably use this, mechanic to do in terms of just what they can add into this that's going to really catch you, so to speak?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to comment too on the poll you took, and the reason why I think you got good response to that is because I think it's the option. I think people are going to pick what they want to do in the route they want to go, and I think the main beauty in itself is going to be player retention. And I go back to TacticalNed's point on Tarkov. I've never played through a Tarkov wipe. I probably have 40 hours in the game over the complete time. My buddy is like a diehard Tarkov player, though. And when I hop back in after a year or so, I forget that it's been wiped and I'm back to square one. But if I have a buddy who kind of plays Arc Raiders and I can go through my wipes and get my cosmetics and everything, but he hops back in, he's not behind anymore. He's honestly ahead. Probably. Most of the time, if you do not wipe, you're going to be ahead of other people in gear-wise, power level. And I think that's a good metric on its own for people who don't like sweat it out. Because people who do sweat it out are going to love to reset every time, get, you know, the little achievements and cosmetics, the 100% that you can. But I literally think the reason why it is so beautiful is because you get to pick what you want to do, and you'll naturally gravitate to which one works for you, and you'll be happy with that.
Interesting.
I want to jump in here,
Go
actually.
for it.
This potentially presents a possible issue that the system could have, which is that if you play a lot with the same buddies all the time and you choose to wipe and they don't, you potentially could get out of sync as far as end game goes. So if there's end game opportunities that relate to modes or certain maps and so on, then it could present a situation where you can't go in and they can, and then suddenly it's not that easy for you to play with them when you really enjoy that aspect of the game. So, like, I'm sort of interested to know how that's going to be handled so that people can still choose themselves, but that peer pressure doesn't get to the point where it's like, okay, I have to wipe because you've wiped.
Yeah, and I would hope that endgame is not locked out to something other than how good is your gun. Like, I should be able to walk in there as level 1 with a pistol and get wrecked to the end game. Like, you shouldn't have like a gate lock, and so that way it'd be like maybe I'm only a week behind my butt or 2 weeks behind my butt, and it's going to be harder for me, but I can still go in with you. And you're kind of accepting that you are an anchor to that team, but you're not like, oh, the door doesn't open because you're not here.
Yep.
Well, real quick, for that question there, I think there's a specific couple of sentences on their post, I think kind of illuminates on that particular thing. So I'm going to read it here. Is, for convenience, after completing an expedition, players will be able to skip the majority of the onboarding and tutorial steps they went through as a new player. This being things like unlocking certain features, maps, and etc. as they play through their early game. This will just be available from the start of a fresh. These will be available from the start as a fresh reset. So this comes to maybe like you have to. This implies that you're unlocking maps, right? And I feel like that will also kind of come with your kind of address your concern a little bit. I think because you know they're saying things that you've already unlocked, you don't got to unlock those again, right? And so I think maybe they'll probably address your concern in that manner in terms of like, hey, you don't have to unlock these things. You just might not have any stuff for it, but you don't have to unlock them again.
Yeah, so I think it'll just present maybe a lopsided squad more than gatekeeping any particular features of the game. And maybe people will just come to accept that their teammate is not as well equipped as they are, and that's going to affect that particular round.
To be honest, though, and Debo, maybe you can shed some light on this. I can see this going this particular way, where it's say you have 1 or 2 people who got their expedition done and they got to wipe, whereas 2 other people didn't, and let's say they chose to wipe and now they're kind of behind in gear. I don't imagine that's going to last very long if they're running with the same squad and they're doing PvP and they're doing that stuff. Like, they may be lopsided in their stash, but as soon as they get like one set of good gear, that's what they're running at that point. And do you feel like it's going to happen that way too?
Absolutely. I actually was thinking that as everyone was discussing this, but I think in this game, especially more so than the finals, I'm sure the finals gave them a lot of opportunity to learn, since it's basically an arena, shooter game where the gun is like critical, the balance is critical. There's no chance for like, shields or anything. It's basically just what gun you have, is it balanced or not? But in this game, I feel like in Arc Raiders, I feel like they learned a lot about power gaps, and I think the power gaps are a lot tighter than they are in the finals, where you can basically go in with a free loadout and come out with a Tempest, like if you play right, and I think that's happened for me and my team a lot, where we would go in, I take in like an Anvil, for example. The Anvil can beat the Osprey. The Il Toro shotgun can sorry,
it can be any gun, let's be perfectly honest.
Exactly. And I don't even want to get into that right now, but I think there is a really great opportunity for players who prestige, because like they said in the prestiging blog post they made, it doesn't give a combat advantage, but you're naturally going to be a player with a lot more, game time. You're probably going to have some map knowledge. And on top of that, the like I said, the power gaps aren't too wide. So I don't think it'll be too bad, honestly.
Sort of along those lines, and Embark don't mention it in the article, is once that expedition has been completed, and it is in a specific time frame, within the community, there's going to be a bunch of people that have just completed their wipe, essentially, and a bunch that chose not to. And I can't see how Embark can't bring some sort of matchmaking into the game to try and even that out a little, so that we just don't have a whole bunch of people that are super geared and people that are at zero at the same, in those first couple of weeks following that date. To me, I think they'd have to bring in some sort of gear matchmaking to just even that out a little, so the people that are still geared face each other a bit more often, and those that don't have gear face each other more often as well.
If I could have a question real quick, the implication behind that is that you want it to be fair because you think the people who have extra gear have an advantage?
Well, people that like that, in some ways, that is the end game, that you do have an advantage over others that don't have the same gear as you. Like if you have a fully upgraded Renegade versus someone that's got a brand new Rattler, right? Typically you're going to come out on top.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily mean they can't face each other, but I'm interested to know if Embark consider that an issue or not. That's probably the question.
Interesting. So I'm going to ping pong this question over to Ned, because my sense is actually kind of the opposite in that regard. I feel like if you're the kind of person who did all of that quick to get an expedition, you're probably a whole lot better than the other person who already has the gear. You're probably going to go into town, so they probably need to separate you, not because this is all like, from Watchmen. They're not locked in here with you. You're locked in there with them. Type situation where the people who got into the expedition faster probably have a lot more PvP, probably have a lot more game time, and probably have a lot more skill. So if anything, you want them to go with each other, not because necessarily just for matchmaking, but also you don't want them to be in a target-rich environment with high-level gear to get their gear back so quickly. Like, that's my sense. What do you think? You agree with Rockhound or my sense? What's your take on this, Ned?
I understand both sides of it. I do think it could be a problem down the road if it was super lopsided, but I also do see what Gecko's saying about how skill kind of comes into the factor of the people that do the resets, especially if they do them multiple times, are just going to be better. So skill has a big factor. And although we haven't seen like what the max levels of upgrading the weapons can do, there were a couple times where I had a Rattler that had only been upgraded twice that I was able to take down somebody better geared than me. And usually in extractions, with my experience, is people that are built chads, if they see somebody that they determine is undergeared, they're usually going to make stupid decisions. Multiple times in Tarkov, I've been playing as a scav, and a Chad or a duo will see me and be like, all right, well, we can just do this or that. This guy's not going to kill us, and then I'll kill both of them. Sometimes I die. But if you outplay them, you're going to win. One of my best games in Arc Raiders was I completely forgot to equip a shield, and we went to Spaceport. And I went and took out a whole 3-man, 1v3 with no shield, and won the fight. So if you can outplay the enemy and outsmart them, even if you're undergeared, it's kind of going to even out the playing field. And it's all about, too, is playing to your weapons. I mean, if you know you're undergeared and you have a Pharaoh and you see somebody like, yeah, that guy's geared, I'm not going to shoot at him. But then you do get the instance where, like Rockhound said, they could just push you as a 3-man and you can't do anything about it.
Right.
I'd love to step in there and rock on. I'm going to come at you a little bit because I'm a snarky little bitch. But
no arguments.
Isn't that part of the challenge? Isn't that the agreement of like, I am taking away everything I own and I am restarting from the ground up? And I know you're not coming at this angle, but I kind of don't like the argument of like, but I shouldn't face the good people. But I shouldn't face, like, that is part of the I'm restarting. Like, I'm gonna get this. I grinded to the top. I'm gonna get this probably cosmetic or account buff or however they said it, like that. And I am starting from the ground up with that Rattler. Like, I think that's part of the ethos of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a completely fair call. I think, in fact, maybe what the actual potential issue is that there might be a segment of the community that are like, I will never wipe because I want to have an absolutely packed stash the entire time. And then the question
Gear
is,
fear.
well,
it's not necessarily just that. We can get into that later.
They
But
feel
yeah.
that they feel they can stomp on people and they want to maintain that position the entire time. And then that flows on to how big is the carrot to make that segment of the community as small as possible if it is problematic.
Right. And
Yeah, and I just think there's different metrics that you could scale off, like KD, right? You could scale a map off KD, and then they would float to the top. Versus, like, I think pure the gear score would also come back to, let's say you wipe and I don't. Can we queue together now if we have a gear score thing? Like, how is that affected? Does it average it?
Right. I think, and it's really important as well, because I remember the instance in the Cycle Frontier. Indeed, well, maybe you can, comment on this in your experience with other extraction shooters. In the Cycle Frontier, they held for so long, so stubbornly, that the MMR had to be based off of your gear extraction value, right? Not KD, none of that. And so they wanted to promote different play styles, right? And people kept telling them, like, this doesn't work. This does not work, because you can game this super quickly, because the Chads are going out there, they're wiping the entire lobby and taking nothing out because they need nothing. And so they end up losing MMR because of it. And then they finally gave KD a chance, and suddenly all the lobbies were even keel, right? Just overnight, the matchmaking became so much better. Do you feel like there's a right way and a wrong way for both of these, or just like, do you feel like it has to come down to, like, can you wipe the lobby or can't you, when it comes to matchmaking?
It's a tricky issue, because obviously Embark has stated time and time again they want to respect the time investment of every level of player in this game. But it's hard to do, because not everyone is going to have a good time in an extraction shooter. Like, it's the nature of, like, not so much extraction as BR, but someone goes in and someone doesn't go out. Basically, that's kind of, it's like a wasteland, and that's part of the excitement. Like Lou said, isn't it kind of exciting to have variety in the game, to face off different people, see someone geared and be like, "Ooh, I want to make a play." And when that tension is gone, what does it take off the table versus what does it add? Like, what's the opportunity cost there? And like you said, coming from a different game, I have like 1,500 hours in Dark and Darker right now. Unemployed, I know, but with the prestige lobbies, similar to how they did it in Dark and Darker, they added gear-based matchmaking, and it basically becomes a thing of trying to find this perfect balance that I really don't know exists, because in Dark and Darker, they added gear-based matchmaking, and they kind of led to this flip-flop development cycle where they would do one wipe with, you have to have below this gear score to get in this lobby. Mm-hmm. That adds some people doing min-maxing, that adds to some people basically going in and always fighting. Like, if you want to actually play the game and continue to progress, what happens when your lobbies become everybody's running purple shields? It's literally a sweat fest. Like, it becomes like an esports arena at that point. Or what happens when you're, a fresh prestige and you find it exciting to fight geared players, but you're constantly, fighting the same Timmys over and over again. You're stomping Timmys, and it's like, okay, this is kind of boring. So it's a hard balance. I personally don't think there should be SBMM. Just, like Lou said, let people experience the extraction grind and the, excitement of it.
Right. I think, and with the SBMM, I think we all kind of agree, like, obviously we don't want it to be so tight that you don't have these varied experiences. But I think we also kind of agree, we don't want brand new players in lobbies with, like, really, really experienced geared players either. So we kind of know there's a limit to that. You gotta eat, especially with Arc Raiders mission, they want to attract a lot of people who are new to this. They don't want to, like, stomp their teeth in the moment they get in either. So, and you're right,
throw them to the wolves.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a balance, and I sympathize with you. Those of you who followed me long enough to be part of the cycle, when they had that matchmaking, they also had gear-based matchmaking, and everyone figured out where the ceiling was, and they just went, "We'll stop right here," and they just stayed in those lobbies. And so, no matter how I think there's always going to be a way to exploit these things, and so finding a good balance to have a fun environment with as wide as possibilities as possible. obviously that's the goal. How they get about doing that, Embark kind of Embark, so they kind of usually just, you know, poop out W's anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
And I think the one thing that's important is that this Expeditions is innovation, and innovation does not come without pain points, right? And we might not know what all the pain points are. We're talking about one of them here, you know, potentially the mismatch in the amount of gear that players have. It might not even be a problem, right? We might get to it and go, actually, it wasn't even a problem at all. Right. But this other thing that we haven't even thought of is an issue. And I expect those first couple of cycles going through this, there's probably going to be stuff that the community like, oh, this part doesn't work very well at all. But we won't get to the part where it's like everyone's happy with it without going through those.
Right.
So I think we should all expect it to be problematic at times, but it's on a path to something that probably should be pretty good, hopefully.
And this comes back to the whole tone as well. Don't expect it to be perfect, right? Go ahead, Ned.
I was going to say another thing, too, that you got to think about is how many maps they're going to have. Because, like, Tarkov, for instance, there are Chads that will go play labs that I have never seen the likes of because I just don't play labs because of the hackers and all the other stuff. But you got these guys that have multi-million-dollar kits or whatever it is going to labs that you'll never see on like customs, you know, very rarely. So let's say Arc Raiders has 8 maps and 3 of them have amazing loot, very fun PvP like Buried City, but like way better loot, but you have a higher chance of dying to Arc, or, you know, it's more players or something. Your Chads are going to go fight for that instead of going to freaking damn Battlegrounds and farming the new players, because Damn is just the new map, like not the new map, the new player map, because it's all your stuff starts out as. Let's pause and restart because I can't speak English apparently. It's where all your new players start out at, and you're not going to have, unless they're super weird, the Chads aren't going to go and sit at damn Battlegrounds waiting for some new player to come around the corner and kill them. Like, that's just sad.
Yeah.
Or it might not even be the starter map. I think it will be just based off the quest we were given, but we'll see.
Right. And it's interesting because it comes down to carrots and incentives. Speaking of which, there's a section here that I think we can kind of speculate on a little bit, because there was key phrases that were in the post when they talked about things that buffs, things like that. So here's the key phrases that they talked about. They said, and these are the benefits you get for, you know, prestiging or going on your expedition, as they're going to call it. Permanent account unlocks for each completed expedition. Account buffs that are applied for the duration of the following expedition cycle. And sequential completions of the expedition project increase the magnitude of these buffs up to a limit. So, you know, obviously, you know, we got some, maybe not necessarily straight talk, but we also have a lot of room for speculation here. What are some permanent unlocks for a complete expedition that come to mind? Rockhound.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's such an
Here, I'll start off
in a very careful way, right?
Here. So, it could be expended stash. Honestly, low hanging fruit. Cool. You start off with a bigger stash this time around.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I think they actually do give some of them away, which is that you all of the maps are unlocked right straight away. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an example of something that is unlocked. I think they're actually keeping it hugely open here because they want to see what the community talk about, right? They're going to take they've done it in a really clever way, which is that they've given us enough information to have conversations like this, which they can then take on board to then give us further information and almost act.
It was our idea.
This is what we had prepared all along, but there'll be some stuff that they haven't prepared and that they're going to get back from us.
Embark, you should totally check out my clan video. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Because I see those as necessarily like, I don't see those necessarily as incentives. I feel like those are kind of like, these are convenience items that I get to have when I'm wiping, but not an incentive to wipe, because I already have those unlocked. Why am I incentivized to wipe at that point? And I can easily see these account buffs basically kind of giving you, they do mention quality of life features, which could be a stash, which could be any number of things. and they do see a buffs that increase in terms of how many times you do it, right? I think that's going to create a little bit of a FOMO in terms of just like, I really love these features. I really better make it to the next expedition because I don't want to go back to 0 again. Like, Luva, is that the kind of the vibe you're getting from this?
Yeah, and I think even they said it somewhere in the post. It was all about like the balance of it, where it never needs to be. It never should be like a combat advantage, which I
Right.
think they're pretty smart about that. But little things like I don't think you should lose anything if you don't prestige the next time, though. Like I think that let's say that when you do prestige and wipe and reset, maybe all of your vendors are unlocked. So you need a little bit of cash, and you can kind of buy those like higher tier vendor items kind of sooner than you would because you don't need to get through the quest line right away. But you'd still have that if you chose not to wipe. But I don't think that it should be a thing where I wiped round 1, didn't wipe round 2, and then now in round 3, I'm actually worse off than round 2 because I didn't wipe. Like, it should never, I don't know. I feel like you shouldn't get, the FOMO should just be cosmetics and skins and like, I don't know, little trinkets and baubles and stuff. It should never be like actual like gameplay mechanics losing, I think. So that's a hard line they got to walk.
I agree.
So just to make sure, just to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, because I was a little confused. So let's say with wipe 1, like you said, you get the permanent unlocks. All right. Let's say each vendor has to be unlocked, and when you wipe the first time, whether you choose or they select it, oh, I want my vendors unlocked. The second time you wipe, you get to choose to have X amount of storage space, and then the third time you get to keep a workbench or something. That's what you're saying? So then, but basically, like if I skipped wipe 2, when I wipe the third time instead of me only getting the permanent unlock for wipe 1 and wipe 3, I would get all 3.
Well, the way they worded
kind
it,
of a sorry, that is kind of a good way I was thinking of it, but the way I'm thinking of it playing out, like let's say wipe 1, I get a bigger stash. Let's say wipe 2, I don't get to finish it, and the third round comes out. I don't want the stash to now go back to what it was pre-wipe 1 because I didn't keep it up. I should like have it and not have to keep it up. I should just be able to unlock extra things the way I see it.
Question.
Oh, so you're talking about the buffs?
Yeah.
Yes, the buffs.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the unlocks. Okay.
No, because the way they word it, right, is the account buffs that are applied for the duration of the following expedition cycle. So they really say it lasts only for the next one, and then any sequential completions of expedition project increase the magnitude of these buffs to a limit. So for me, that definitely says if you're wiping on 1 for a benefit and you want to keep that benefit, you better wipe on round 2 because you're going to lose it, right? And if you get the benefit even more, if you wipe on number 2 and you get the benefit even more on weapon number 3, you've kind of gotten used to playing at this level with these benefits that maybe it's an incentive for you to just keep doing that, right? And so that's what I'm thinking in that regard. Now, maybe my imagination is not that good. No, Debo, can you think of any benefits, like just quality of life benefits, that make you want to go, you know what? I'd rather just wipe and then go back to not having this.
I don't know if this is exactly answering your question. Please let me know. But one thing that comes to mind, similar to the Call of Duty prestige system, which is like the OG prestige system. I can't think of an earlier prestige system. Is a late game skill tree item. Since all the skill trees were soft locked, I believe, like I don't remember if that's exactly true, but you can only have a certain amount of skill points invested into a character. So if you want to have the variety of different play styles at different points, it would be really cool if you could unlock a skill tree item. However, that does get into gameplay advantages. So I don't know if they would do something like that. But it would give you the opportunity to try different paths as well. So, something.
I think if I just can jump in here, I think that would actually go against what they've previously said that we lose, which is anything inherent to our character's progress levels, skills. So it sounds like skills do get completely wiped. Yeah. So I think if skills are included, that wouldn't make sense from what they've told us already.
Got it.
Yeah, fair.
So, Rockhound, do you think maybe this would fit into what they're talking about? Maybe they would have like an XP buff, so the next time around you can get to the expedition a little faster.
I think that would make sense. It doesn't give you a combat advantage. It just makes the process of going through the expedition project less hard.
And
So I think
even not
that would be
necessarily
a good example.
because XP would just be affecting your skill tree and things like not necessarily what you need to bring in for the expedition. So it would just get you kind of back to par where you were before, faster.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that could be an example of a buff that would be fine, and it wouldn't affect the combat side of things. So I think the way they've structured it, like having account unlocks and cosmetic rewards, for some people, even if there was nothing below that in the list of benefits, they would be happy with that, right? There will be a bunch of people in the community that would quite happily just take a cosmetic reward as incentive enough to wipe. The things that flow on below that, so the buffs applied to the duration of the next expedition cycle and then being able to stack on that, right? Embark are going to have to continue like sailing right up to the point where it's like, how close are we getting to combat advantages? And this area becomes an area that people will argue over as to what's combat advantage, right?
Right.
If you kept, well, it's a skill, so that's not going to be. But as an example, if you kept the ability to open certain lockers, right, there's that security breaching skill that you have. If you kept that, well, was that a combat advantage or not? Because you can get access to stuff that other people can't. It becomes a bit of a grey zone and arguable about what's a combat advantage.
Right.
Having said that, Embark need to find a way to get those people that where cosmetic rewards are not enough to incentivize them to wipe.
Also, it comes back to the eye of the beholder. In terms of like, sure, it might normally be an incentive for them, but what if the ones they put out for that particular expedition doesn't entice them at all? And so, who knows? I think it's going to come down to carrots and no sticks, which usually doesn't work out in certain things. And so, with that being said, you did make a prediction in possibility in that regard. There's a lot of wait and see. How do you guys think this is actually going to like look like fast forward let's say 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 14 weeks, what does the game start looking like at that point? Or maybe even just a few cycles of these things that's going to happen. Let's say 3 expeditions later, what does the game look like?
So obviously just talking about it as if obviously as we only know about the expeditions, like nothing else, just in that way, is I think you're always going to have your people that are going to do it just to do it. Like me, I'm going to do it either way. I'm probably going to do it multiple times each time, just unlock everything, just because as long as there's cosmetic rewards, whether it be skins, freaking a gun charm, whatever, a title, I'm going to keep doing it. But if it's not incentive enough, if you get to that time span, like you said, like 14 weeks down the road, people aren't going to be doing it. And it really just depends on what else they have within the end game. Depends on how much that's a factor. But I think, like I just said, it's all going to play out to how incentive it is how it's going to play out. If it's incentive enough, it's going to be great. I think you're going to have a very good balanced atmosphere. You're still going to have those times where some guy, who has just got off his 10-hour shift and is on to play for 2 hours, runs into the guy that hasn't left his basement in 3 weeks. You're going to have that. But for the most part, I think it would work out pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'm interested. I don't know how it's going to play out, but the thing I do think is that I think people are going to fall into line of what they like. You're going to have people that this is going to be their game they play, and they're going to hit every wipe. And you're going to have people like my friend Bulbin, who is going to hop in maybe once or twice a month. He probably won't ever wipe, but he'll probably be able to hop into me every time and not feel like he's lost his progression. So as much as people are kind of looking at the value of the wipe, I think we've almost solved kind of people are going to do it if they want. DBOMG said he's going to wipe. Like, he's sure about that. We don't even know what the rewards are yet. He's already made up his mind. But I might not. And I think that's kind of like people will fall into line of what they think is worth it.
Interesting. I think we're kind of dancing around. I think the purpose of the wipe was to combat gear inflation, not to incentivize people to get rid of their stuff. right? Like that's supposed to be the goal, to get rid of gear inflation. It just happens that we need to do that by incentivizing people to get rid of their stuff. And so I don't know, Debo, how do you think this is going to play out? Let's say fast forward 3 expeditions later, what does the game look like?
Not to answer a question with a question, but my biggest curiosity is what the, I guess, state of the game will be in terms of the actual gameplay loop. During the tech test, it was a lot more about, exploring the world, trying to kill the Arc, fighting other players, getting better loot, the classic extraction stuff. But in games like Tarkov, where you have, I haven't personally played Tarkov, but I always hear people talk about the Kappa container. Luve can probably attest to that. Anyone who's played Tarkov can probably attest to that. But when you have this like huge end goal, how does that affect the actual day-to-day gameplay? You're going 3 expeditions ahead, but another thing, like Lou said, all we know right now is the expeditions. What about the other projects? They implied that there will be other projects. So, are they going to highly affect the game that we know right now? Like, will it play differently? Will it still be Arc Raiders when what we're all going for is this like massive expedition? Like it's a, what they say, 12-week, 8-week. So it's like a
8
pretty
weeks,
big
yeah.
time investment. Yeah. So that's my biggest curiosity right now.
I think it's interesting because the biggest question mark is that we don't know what the incentives are. And we all kind of acknowledge, doesn't matter what the incentives are, is that like you're going to have people who never do it and people that will do it every time just cuz, and whether or not that's going to solve the gear inflation, I think that's going to be the problem, because you're going to have people who are going to play the game whether they wipe or not, as that gear inflation takes hold, whether or not it takes hold, right? It's that's going to be the problem, not the wipes themselves.
I'd also love to see a world where I wipe sometimes, but not other times. It can be the first time I do get that cosmetic, but let's say round 2, again, this is like super spitballing for an example. Let's say they release like a PvE like endgame raid where it's like a 3-person you can go in there and like grind higher level gear, and me and my buds are like, yo, we're gonna keep our good gear and not wipe this time to keep grinding this. And like there might be examples where like it's almost like are you gonna take path A, or is the wipe gonna prevent you from something? I'd love to see a example where it's almost like a there's an advantage to and an advantage to not.
Right. And ultimately, my personal hope is that this is just a piece to a puzzle, right? That this is not I'm hopeful, because they even said it themselves. They acknowledge this is not a silver bullet. So I think this is just a piece to that puzzle. I'm curious to see what the other puzzles are going to be, not necessarily just this one, because as Ted said, I don't see an end game here. All right, and so Rockhound, any thoughts?
Yeah, one thing I actually I wrote into the video I published yesterday, and then I edited it out at the last moment, and I kind of regret doing that now. But it was the idea: what if one of the incentives was to allow people that chose to complete an expedition to get early access to a new map? So it's outside the game; it doesn't affect gameplay. Well, I guess you could get the advantage of knowing the map ahead of other people, right? And would that external carrot act as something that might attract people that are sitting on the line of whether to wipe or not, to get them in there? And would it be a good thing to do, or would people go, hey, this isn't fair, why should people that have just played well and get to the point that can wipe get access to a new map ahead of those of us that just haven't been good enough? I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on that idea.
Interesting. That was my devil's advocate question for you. So I'll go ahead and just ask you then straight up, since you just brought it up anyways. So here's my devil's advocate question. I'm basically going to be representing the minority of the community of people who don't particularly care for what they heard from Embark side of things. And so here's my question for Rockhound, and since you brought it up, let's go ahead and tackle that. It feels like
we're about to be thrown under the bus.
No, not at all, not at all. So this is a great panel to contend with it, because I feel we're all Arc-Aholics here, and so totally. I like to pride myself in being even-handed in either praise or in criticism. And so in order to do that, I have to kind of give voice to people who maybe didn't
Oh,
vote,
totally.
or maybe who don't necessarily follow my circle. So there could be a little bit of an echo chamber going on here. So
Yeah,
I need
I
to
agree.
be even-handed with it. So here's my question on this one. For you specifically, it feels like the lore justification for the mechanic is quite weak, and there are some low-hanging fruit available for both story as well as economic benefits. They stated that one of the things that you will be able to keep as a player are features that are unlocked like maps, which implies not all maps will be accessible from the start. Why not gate more advanced maps behind expeditions? A firm stop like this will ensure newer players aren't in advanced maps with more experienced players, and more experienced players will have, by default, more escalated lobbies to jump into. Something about how Embark have couched their presentation gives me the feeling that this isn't on the table currently. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it kind of harks back to what I've just been talking about, and kind of why I edited it out of the video. Right, is that I didn't want to come across as saying I think they should do this.
Right.
I just wanted to present the idea as a talking point.
Well, I am. I'm saying they should do
You
this.
know what? They should actually just suck it and see. Like, chuck it out there and do it.
Right.
And see what the community's reaction to it is. And if people don't like it, well, just don't do it again. And,
Right.
and as long as the community's open enough to go, hey, we know you're still innovating, but just don't do this bit again because we don't like it, and can move on from it, then maybe it's worth trying to see if it's
Certainly.
something that can really make it a more attractive thing to do.
I have two thoughts on that. The first one is that would fix your MMR right there. Only low-level people on that new map, even if it was like only for the first week or something like that. The other thing I'm really scared about, coming from MMORPGs, which I play a ton, is time gating. And if that new map is locked behind that prestige or that wipe, I would hate to tell my bud, you can do that in 8 weeks. Like, you will not get here. Like, if you came in like a week later or something, it would, I know like it needs to be an unlocked thing. We could play the other maps together, but there should be some form of way to grind or sweat that, like, I can't just look at them and be like, you get this in 2 months. Like, that's might be enough to push people away from like new content that they hear about on Reddit, and maybe they missed something by a week. I just feel like the negative of that could be very impactful.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, I think something like that would be too long if I understand that right. What you were saying, I think it would be more like when you complete the wipe, you immediately, as you go in, get access to a new map, and say 5 days later, everyone gets access to the new map.
Gotcha. Yeah, right? I appreciate that approach a lot.
Because if we consider that maps might be end game, well, there will also be other maps that are introduced that are more like damn battlegrounds, right? Which are, everyone gets access to it early on, or the potential for it. So, yeah, I think you can't gatekeep it that much. But a few days, might be attractive to people to get in 3 or 4 days early.
Right, and I think the idea was most of the fact that after we have enough maps to the point and content that a player starting off, you're not gonna, unless you're like super Chad, you're not gonna get to that point in the time it takes for you to get to the expedition if you finish anyways. So it's irrelevant to you. But to Lou's point, sometimes people will be that good and they'll get to that point and they'll be like, "This is sucky. I have to wait because XYZ arbitrary reason," right? Debo, you were saying you wanted something to add before we get into this devil advocate side of things.
Funny because it actually kind of relates to what Rockhound brought up with the new maps, and I was really thinking about that ever since I read the dev post. Like you guys have said, their wording is pretty ambiguous, left up to interpretation a lot of times. And they mentioned there's a specific quote: most survivors stay within their settlements, but like the raiders who dared to venture topside, there are those who dared to venture even farther. And that really does imply like unlocking a new location, like dare to venture even farther. What does that mean? Unless they're just saying stuff for the sake of, you're prestiging. Oh, it's like a new beginning. You're venturing farther. But I feel like they're probably lining something up. And I feel like that might, obviously a game shouldn't try to please everyone. But this really gives the opportunity for Embark to do what they've shown they like doing, where you're bringing players from different folds into extraction games. Like, will this be an opportunity for new narratives? What will the opportunities be for global mission orders? You know how in Helldivers, you're kind of trying to liberate Super Earth. Like there could be a whole message behind this game other than just it's an extraction game. There could be, you're in Speranza, you're trying to basically save the world, and it kind of gives this pretext to why you should even care. Like there's something more to the game. It's deeper than just go in, shoot people, get out. I just think it's a cool opportunity. I don't know if they want to go that deep into it, but it could bring a lot of new mindsets from different, communities into the game. I wonder what you guys think of that.
Just real quick.
I was actually gonna
just a real quick disturb, real quick.
ahead.
I apologize. If there's one thing we can probably all say about Embark or not say about Embark, they're not the kind of guys who says, it's too deep for that.
Yeah.
These are probably the kind of guys who are like, we need to go a little further.
100%.
I feel like consistently they've shown us where that's the case. So I think you're onto something there where you kind of keyed in on a specific wording there. I thought it was just basically fluff. It could be, but now that I think about it, Embark aren't the kind of people who put together just fluff. So what about you, Ned? You had something to say on that one?
Yeah, so I was actually going to say something along the same lines as Debo is I don't think what Rockhound said is unfair at all. I was thinking the exact same thing with the verbiage in the post is they are the pioneers. They are taking on the danger and taking that chance and going on to explore new things. So for it to unlock a new map that they have access to, even if it's for one day, I don't see that as being unfair. I actually think it'd be kind of cool. And the other thing is with, a lot of people have been talking about the wipe thing, how most people might not be able to do it. It might take too much time. We don't know yet. But from what they said in the post and from that brief bit of footage they showed us, I don't think it's going to be that hard. Especially since they mentioned wiping multiple times. I think people are going to have enough time to just do it once if they wanted to. And if you choose not to, and there is a new map and it does unlock one, it's just you chose to opt out of going to that new map for a day or two or whatever it is.
So real quick, I'm going to go into my next Devil's Advocate question. This one's directed at Louv. Having not played Arc Raiders previously, but plenty of other extraction shooters, if someone summarized this mechanic as a, quote, long-winded way of saying prestige, it's doing staged, fetched quests for the privilege of doing it all over again, end quote, would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you like I said, it's kind of what I was saying the whole time, right? You know what you're doing. You know you want that challenge of restarting from the ground up. Like I love early game of extraction shooters and MMORPGs and like games where like the gear progression happens. I get stale when I hop in there and I'm in a full purple kit, full max gun, and go in there and PvP a little bit. It's fun for a while, but I love when like chasing the upgrades, like going about it. I think it'll be worth it for the people that it's worth it for.
Interesting. Okay. Pretty simple. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I was just going to add that I think Embark come across to me as not being ones to sit on their hands when it comes to quests. I think if you imagine people going through the first season and then they complete their expedition and they want to reset, but at the start of that next season, the entire quest line could be completely different, and it wouldn't matter for the people that have just joined in the game for the first time at that point because they've never done it before, right? So they could just see it as this is the normal quest line that someone new does. But for the person that reset, they're going through it again going, oh, these are actually, like a third of these quests are brand new and I've never done them before. And that's really cool because it gives me a bit of variety over what I did last time. And both parties are happy, right? New people are happy because they're doing quests that feel right. And the people that have reset are happy because they're doing some quests that are different.
Okay. Fair enough. Debo, any thoughts?
Whereas I get the impression that Tarkov, right, for example, they don't really do that. It's just the same quests over and over. Is that right?
Sometimes they've added things, but I'd say the core 80% is kind of similar, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think I totally agree with that, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I just keep harping on like the narrative thing, which might be ironic. I like PvP a lot, but I think it's an opportunity to expand on a pretty slim genre. Like the genre is niche for a reason because I think they don't provide anything else for people who aren't into the wipes, people who aren't into the PvP. Like it's just, other than that, what else do you play for? So they really can expand. You know, the world is we're in a quest for human survival, right? Like you're being bombarded by this apocalyptic, you know, arc threat and whatever. So it doesn't just have to be fetch quests. You could, you know, say there was a house with some NPCs or whatever in it. You could go there, save some people, bring them back to Speranza, and you know they might give you some materials that they've been hoarding while they were topside. Just something like that. But you know, there's just a lot of opportunities for quests to not just be the simple same old stuff that we've seen in every other extraction game, and that's a great way to expand the genre.
And I think when I add something to that is that their introduction to it, right, which is kind of narrative based, and I really like that they talk about the raider going off to, you know, far off lands,
Right.
and it's just kind of a story at this place. I don't see that actually happening, but Expeditions 2.0 could actually include something that is actually gameplay where you go off and get to do something that other players don't get to do, and it's maybe it's PvE or whatever, but they could easily add something in there to actually make the whole process more than just building your caravan and then kissing your raider goodbye.
Right.
Can I throw something in right there? I've just had this thought in my head, and it's just never escaped me. I talked to my friend, my duo in a lot of my videos, Brian. We probably spoke about this in some footage, but imagine how cool it would be if there was other colonies, right? Because it said there's an underground tunnel system.
There has to be.
Right. There's other colonies where other humans are living who are trying to escape the arc threat. Imagine you go and you're taking the tunnel system and you break through. I don't know if you guys have ever played Metro Exodus, but you break through into this new colony and there's a bunch of arc like invading the underground colony. And you're in there. It's like, and this would be, like Lou said, sort of a labs type map or something that's time gated for a day. And it's a super advanced PvP map. You get in there, there's a bunch of arc in there. And you're basically fighting close quarters, trying to free this. And the reason it would be open for a day is because you free it, and then the day after, the new Speranza unlocks, right? You have a new area, and I think that would be so cool. Like, there's just so much opportunity. I'm really excited.
For sure.
But
And
yeah,
so,
stuff like that.
You're kind of saying that the people that choose to complete expeditions, they would actually get the opportunity as a group, like as a community, to unlock
Imagine that.
this other stuff for the entire community.
Yeah.
I think
Imagine
would be
that.
cool.
Wow.
That'd be great.
Okay. So you got piqued my interest now. You had my attention, but now you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Here we go.
So basically, consider I did a video on the defense of Speranza, like as an event idea. This can easily be an event idea where you doesn't have to even be for a day. It could be for that week where you get to expand. You get to do that right there, and it doesn't feel like it's a loss for someone who maybe, you know, came in late, but it's like it's a reward, right? It's like a reward. But it's I'm glad somebody got it. You know, it's not so much taking away from somebody who maybe didn't get to that point yet, but it's like you get the benefits afterwards. It's just that whether or not you get it is going to be contingent on people who are you know, going on the expedition can complete the mission, right? And that's like huge funnel for like a massive amounts of content, because like let's say they advertise this at the beginning of the expedition window, you are going to be busting your ass to get ready for that. You want to be there. You're going to tell your buddies, but you need to get on the game. You need to get on the game, right? Because we want to do this, right? So I can totally see that as a huge carrot, even if it's like I only get to play this super cool event for like a week, but that's like that FOMO, that's that healthy FOMO that even Helldivers did for the defense of Super Earth. It's like it's going to push people to the game and wipe a bunch of people in a very healthy and energetic way.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. Me right now.
I need it.
Need that in my life. All right. Going on, continuing on this Devil's Advocate journey here. This one's going to be directed at Debo. All right. And this one's I kind of been thinking about this, right? And I think as the heavy, I'll designate you the heavy PvP player in the group right now for Arc Raiders.
I'll take it.
The king, if you will.
No, please.
Right. The gameplay loop is what makes extraction shooters genre work. Part of that is grinding up gear, but also benefiting from said grind in the form of getting to use said gear. That part is really satisfying, at least for me. Hopefully it's for you as well. And you get to put on some heavy gear. You get to, you know, swing the big D, so to speak, right? You get to have fun getting the benefits of your grind. Most of the time, prior to a wipe, these games devolve into people running high-level gear and just pushing fights. However, will this be less fun than wiping yourself to do it back all over again?
I absolutely think so. Absolutely, I think it'll be less fun, because at a point, it just comes down to a simple fact of you're doing the same thing over and over again. No matter how fun the game is, I don't know any game, like even the biggest of them, like Apex Legends, Fortnite, they lose players over time because Fortnite has innovated, obviously, but the main battle royale mode, I watched the video, like their battle royale mode is less popular than some of their custom modes. So coming from Dark and Darker, as a pretty experienced player on there, I have sometimes been in wipes where I've had a stash on a character, and it's just like purple, 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 gold, 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 and it's just like at a point I've literally just deleted gear. I've just deleted it, and it's not even a wipe. I'll just sell it to the merchants, get a little bit extra money, and then just go back in, and I'm like, all right, let's try. Even if it's just for the sake of, you don't want to get some new gear, but you can just go in and try to you don't want to start from scratch. You can just go in and try something new, try a different build, try a different skill tree, etc. And I think that's how you keep the game alive and fresh. I think I definitely would need a way to reset.
Interesting.
I want to add something onto that, is that if you actually have watched that stream where Clean played with Virgil Watkins, the design director for the game, also known as Shy, he talked about how his background and interest was in a lot of games that were sandbox style. So he talked about DayZ, and there were some others as well. And I think that element is super important in Arc Raiders, that there is a sandbox kind of style to it, and people can come up with their own outcomes within the game. And it's not that sort of battle royale type where there's only ever one outcome, right? You can have a variety of different gameplay styles, and it just opens up opportunities to push the game in different directions, which some other games might not be able to.
Interesting.
Agreed.
All right. I got one more question. If Luve can stick around. Okay, cool. Last one's to Ned. Now, you got plenty of experience in other extraction shooters, Tarkov, ABI, things of that nature, right? And it'd be fair to say ABI basically has a pretty big gear inflation problem when it comes to like their money, just billions and billions of Cohen. And so, given the wide variety of player motivations, be it bragging rights, story progression, power growth, etc., are there any concerns that the expeditions aren't going to incentivize enough players to consistently mitigate this rampant gear inflation that we're staring down the barrel of? Like I feel like in the back of your head, maybe, is there any kind of worry there?
If I'm understanding you correctly, yes, because like I said earlier, with the incentives, if they're not there, people aren't going to do it because it looks great on paper. And one of the biggest things I think they've got to nail is the cosmetics. Because one of the biggest things, and like Debo mentioned Fortnite earlier, the reason they keep so many of their numbers is they have all these events with this limited time cosmetic, this limited time battle pass, limited time mode. That brings people back like crazy. And so if you have those cosmetics that are earnable and they're free, all you got to do is do the expedition, and they're amazing looking and people want them, then it's going to happen. If you don't have that, people aren't going to do it. Not only will it make it to where people aren't going to use the wipes, but it'll kill the replayability overall. And of course, this has to do with they'd have to really incentivize with the good buffs and stuff, but I don't have enough information right now to even know what those are going to be.
Right. A lot of what ifs right now. A lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
Can I ask something to Ned? What are your opinions on, I guess, lore accuracy for cosmetics versus, cartoonish? Because it's a huge discussion in gaming right now where you see basically COD is the one end of the spectrum and Battlefield is that's the two arguments people always make. Well, I don't want to run around as Nicki Minaj all day. That's the comment I always see versus, I want to wear like this tactical milsim. And Arc Raiders, the finals goes crazy with that. Like you can fully customize, but Arc Raiders is kind of towing the line where it's like you can be an astronaut, and it kind of goes with the recycled aspect of the world. But I just want to ask, what are your thoughts on like where should the game go with cosmetics? Like,
So I think the direction for the cosmetics that we even saw during the tech test are a great direction because they are realistic to the lore. They're not beyond crazy. Like in the finals, like you said, you can make some pretty crazy stuff. And it's not Call of Duty either. I don't know what their plans are, but I do not want to see like, hey, we collabed with Rick and Morty. Like, I don't want to see that in our... But there's a ton of like, hey, I forget. I think somewhere it might have said how long the Ark have been there. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's been 200 years. These people don't know what fashion is. They're going off of what works for them. Like the guy, there's that one skin where you wear like the old scuba diving suit. That was my favorite skin to use during the tech test. That is essentially useless. It's just a style choice, like in that scenario.
Well, it's a helmet.
Because they don't know what they might not even know what they do. Yeah, exactly. It's just a helmet. Like they don't know what it does. So I think they have a very wide area for cosmetics that they can do without going over the line of too cartoony.
Right.
Agreed.
So,
all right. So, I think we've pretty much run out of time at this point, gents, and I want to thank everybody here for dedicating their time, showing up and being part of this conversation, being enthusiastic. Unfortunately, I have to make an announcement. This will, in fact, be the last episode of Arc-Aholics before we get access to Arc Raiders again.
Before I get to play the game for the first time.
Before we get access to Arc Raiders. Next time we will be talking, we get to all talk to Luve and be like, so, was it everything you hoped it would be?
Now, the big question is, Luve, did you pre-order it?
Oh, fuck yeah, bud. I'm part of the podcast. Like, I'm still in the middle, you know what I mean?
I don't know.
Give me 3 or 4 more episodes. You guys can convince me to buy it or not.
Right. All right, so I want to thank you guys all for doing it. I want to thank everybody for listening in, all the audience and whatnot. I want to thank Debo for showing up, taking his first time to come out here. I want to give you guys a chance to promote your guys' content that's coming out. I know Debo, probably going to be same day every day, right?
Same day every day. Try to post in the mornings. If not, sometime that day.
All PvP.
And all PvP, just Debo OMG with 2 G's. And thank you guys so much for having me. It's been so great talking to y'all.
Yes. Luve, any more Minecraft stuff or anything new?
Just whatever I'm feeling by the week, brother. Just tune in.
Fantastic. Ned, I know you're a rock star with an absolute fantastic beginner's guide that's so good people want to copy. Anything new planned coming out like?
Yeah, I actually have a video that I'm planning on putting out either Monday or Wednesday. It's actually basically a PvP guide video for Arc Raiders.
Okay.
And then I'll probably have 1 or 2 more videos before release, and then after release, as many as I can.
Right. Gotta keep on track. Rockhound, how many more times are we gonna see your glorious face on a YouTube video?
Well, I expect that Embark will probably have a lot more stuff coming this week, so I'll be commenting on any of that that comes out for sure, and really looking forward to actually jumping back on to doing some streaming once we get to Server Slam.
Fantastic. Yes. Myself, I got Tuesday night Arc Chat streaming. I got a couple of tip videos coming down the pipe for that. So look forward to doing all that. Everyone's links in the socials are going to be down in the description below. If you're listening right now and want to get hold of anybody, they're right down there. And thank you so much for being here. Rockhound, please send us out.
I was just going to say, it's a fantastic discussion today, and the discussion does not end here. So in the comments below, write what your thoughts are about what you've heard us talking about today. And everyone enjoy the rest of their day. And kia kaha, stay strong.